All right, Miles, let's talk Alabama football here for a second. Look, it's spring ball time. Teams are gearing up, getting ready for spring practice, of course, which leads into summer workouts, which, of course, leads into fall camp, which leads into the only thing that really matters. And then, of course, is the regular season in 2023. Alabama is no different than any other program, except for the fact that Alabama, once again, has massive expectations. They've earned that under Coach Nick Saban. But Nick Saban had some interesting comments that I think will be exciting for Alabama fans and also potentially a little worrisome for their competition, that Crimson Tide could continue to be back, or frankly, stay at the top. I shouldn't say continue to be back, stay at the top in the short term and in the long term, Mize.
Yeah, Nick. And when you say comments made by Nick Saban, that is some of the best Alabama content throughout history. Is Nick Saban at a press conference, says a lot of interesting stuff. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes, he can get at the other team pretty well. But that's what we want to know in the comment section below. What is your favorite Nick Saban press conference moment of all time? Let us know in the comments below. But Nick, at this particular press conference, what was Nick Saban talking about?
Yeah, so Saban is getting up there, right? I think he's in his early 70s. He's been coaching for a very long time. He's still spry, still energetic. But the reality is you're going to start hearing these questions about when he's going to retire, right? You obviously had it with the Bobby Bowden situation, the Joe Paterno situation. And a lot of times those guys at the end of the career, there was a feeling they kind of dragged the program down. They were old and stale. They didn't recruit at the same level they were used to, things like that. Well, Nick Saban went on the podcast with Stephen A. Smith on Smith's podcast and was asked that question directly and had some very interesting comments I think Crimson Tide fans will love. When asked about when he would hang it up, Saban said this. He said, quote, "I basically love what I do. I love the relationships with the players. I love trying to build a team with a group of people. That's a lot of fun. I enjoy doing that. But I am also very aware that I don't ever want to ride the program down." Saban went on to say as well, "I don't want to ever be in this position where I don't feel like I'm making a positive contribution into the program because I can still work at the quality level that is making a contribution to the success of the organization. So I'm not there yet," talking about his retirement, but all those things are factors that I would consider. Whenever the time comes, it hasn't come yet. All right, Miles, I think this is a big indication that Saban is going to set Alabama right for two reasons. One, he's not packing it in. Like, obviously, like I alluded to, I think guys like Bobby Bowden, I think Howell and Schnellenberger at Florida Atlantic, I think Joe Paterno, at the end of their careers, they were chasing records or just trying to hang on a little bit. And, the programs weren't as good as they were before, and it was dragging the program down. You had an old coach, a lot of talk about who's the succession plan, who's the next guy, and that really hurt those programs. Nick Saban recognizes that. He's not going to let that happen to Alabama. So when he feels he can't contribute at a high level as a head coach anymore, I think he's going to step down, which would be great for the program, obviously. Number two, he also has no signs of stepping down anytime soon, which should absolutely terrify the rest of the SEC. We know Georgia and Kirby Smart, they're on their best run in program history. They're absolutely phenomenal. But Saban and under Alabama, right, they're right there with them and potentially will be even better than them next year. And they're head and shoulders above the rest of the SEC, which is head and shoulders above the rest of college football. And the one thing I think the SEC has been hoping for a long time is, when will Nick Saban retire? When will he screw it up at Alabama? And his recent comments on the Stephen A. Smith podcast is that that's never going to happen. Saban is not going to retire for a long time until he feels like he can't be a good coach anymore. And when he does feel like he can't be a quality coach, he will very smartly and succinctly move out of the program, which will help Alabama move on. Miles, give me your thoughts on Nick Saban's comments and just everything with the Crimson Tide program right now.
Yeah, Nick, I'm going to put a number on it. I'm thinking 85, 87, somewhere around there is when Saban's going to retire. As you mentioned, it sounds like what he's trying to say is, as long as I'm good and the program's good, I will still coach. And I think that he's like the Tom Brady of coaching, where every year everyone's like, well, Alabama had a slight slide this year. Are they on the rocks? Is Saban looking to walk away? And then the next year they come back and do even better. And I think that's what we're going to see this year. By all accounts, recruiting, everything like that, is one of Alabama's best years in recent memory. So I think they're going to come back with a vengeance this year. Potential national championship winner. I would say underdog, but they aren't the underdog ever. So that's a stupid thing to say. So I was just going through when I was going through my head right there. But Nick Saban, Alabama, I think that they will be good for a long time. So I think Saban will coach for a very long time. So I'm thinking, he could potentially even have like 10 more years as a coach at Alabama.
Yeah, I think you brought up a great parallel comparing him with Brady. And we talked about it on some of our other shows, talking about guys who have a lot of sustained success are very process oriented, not goal oriented. And we see that with Saban's comments, right? He's not saying, well, I want to coach till I'm 80 or I want to win 2 more national titles, or I want to win 100 more games, or I want to beat whatever record, or I want to coach until my grandkids graduate. And he's not looking for he's not looking for a goal or a milestone to reach. He's looking for a time when he can't handle the process anymore. And that's how you know. I mean, obviously, you know, because he's been an amazing coach, but that's a sign of really great and high talented and high performing people is when they're focused on the processes and the systems in place. And that's why I think you're right on the money there, Mike. He's going to keep coaching until he can't follow that process anymore. Very similar to Tom Brady, who kept playing until he felt he couldn't follow that grind and that process of being an NFL quarterback anymore. And like I said, if you're the rest of the SEC, this has got to scare the living crap out of you, because he's still, to your point, Miles, recruiting at an incredibly high level. Like last year, when talks about it was the worst year in Alabama in a decade, and they were, you know, top 7, top 6 program, 11 wins, major bowl victory, dominated Kansas State after a slow start to that game. So when I look at this program going forward, they're only going to get better to the point they're going to compete once again for national titles. Saban still comfortably is in his process, which makes him so tough to beat by frankly anybody, especially, you know, even the top programs like Georgia, Ohio State, and those guys. So going forward, right, Alabama is going to be a big dog. They're going to continue to be the dominating force they've always been, and Saban's going to keep coaching until he believes he can't hang in anymore. And right at that point, it's got to make Crimson Tide fans feel really good about themselves and just really disappoint, be a big bummer for the rest of the SEC.